Colonel Sanjay Julka, Vice President BAOA and CEO India Fly Safe, who's going to be the moderator for the session. Group Captain Pankaj Chopra, Director Aviation Oberoi Group. Mr. Mark Martin, Founder and CEO Martin Consulting. And Mr. Jayant Nadkarni, who's our President.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have a very easy task to perform. Firstly, the timing has been reduced to just 30 minutes. And the second thing is the content of this session has mostly been covered in the previous one. So what remains for me is just to sum up and maybe have a part 2, which is the lighter side, to interact with you and come out with some out-of-the-box suggestions that you feel that we can change the business environment to make it more friendly and more enabling. So the slide that I made, you will find the same things being repeated. The 4 pillars: infrastructure, training, tax, regulation. We've all talked about it. What we perhaps did not talk about is the culture, the business aviation culture that needs to be there amongst all of us, amongst all stakeholders. So I'll touch upon this towards my concluding remarks. But just to start off, these are the 5 basic. If you notice the government regulations, it doesn't speak about the DGCA regulations. Notice the devil there. It is not a picture that I've picked up from an Indian, website. So all around the world, the government regulations are all perceived like this only. So, oh. Oh, good. Now you'll see it then. Come. See these government regulations. So that devil that you see out there, it's not the DGCA, it's government regulations, not the DGCA regulations. Because I feel that we have been, blaming the DGCA a lot. There is a lot of blame I feel that we need to put on the other ministries also. People in the Ministry of Civil Aviation are quite live to these problems. They are ready to sit down with you, but when they go to the other ministries, like Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Defense, or maybe town planning or communication, there are a lot of hurdles there, especially in the field of infrastructure. When you have to develop an airport and you've got to get clearances from Ministry of Civil, Ministry of Communication and Ministry of Defense for the airspace and all these things, there is a stumbling block in these ministries also. So the government regulation covers everything. Right, so I won't touch all of them. So these we've already spoken about in Kapil's, this thing. Right. So what I want to actually ask is, to the panelists, the first question that I wish to ask is, there is a very positive environment in the Ministry of Civil Aviation, but when it comes down to the grassroots levels, we find that in the execution stage or in the stage below or even in the mid section, the pace which should have been there is not there. So, Mark, would you like to take on? Would you like to answer this question on how do we ensure that what is the vibrancy which is being shown, the positivity which has been shown at the Ministry of Civil Aviation level, how do we make sure that it remains and it trickles down to the last man, to the person who's sitting in DGCA or sitting in the ministry and signing your final approval letters?
Thanks, Sanjay. Well, just to kind of come up on a few points here, I think there's what you said in terms of vibrancy, positivity with the ministry, the NCAP. I think the disconnect comes from what comes from a quasi-political ideology into a regulatory framework. Now, predominantly, we're dealing with two verticals here. We're dealing with FAA-governed states, and we're dealing with ICAO. Now, if you look at plain statistics, let's not go too detailed, FAA regulatory environments have thrived. Now, whether we can, I mean, India is only going to jump up when we use the word Pakistan, okay? And I think Mr. Chaukial's data, when he said the air transport penetration in Pakistan is more. Why Pakistan? Let's look at Africa. Let's look at Tanzania. Let's look at the whole region. So the whole viability of positivity, I think it's great. I think the fact that the government is taking progressive as opposed to regressive steps is tremendous. But in effect, how much are we as an industry experiencing or in a position to at least take account of the fact that things are fine and dandy? And I think the views here, that the fact that we're all here, if things were absolutely fine, this conference would have been one session and everybody goes to the bar, get pissed. And that's clearly not happened. I think we're all waiting for the bar to open, right? So the fact remains is, where are we getting lost in translation? Is it at a policy level? Is it at a legislature level? Is it a political agenda? Or has anyone really peered into the DGCA to see exactly what is going on? Are those regulations right? So yes, I mean, I think we are in the right direction. I do believe, I think a lot of the work that Group Captain Bali and Rohit and everyone from BOA, and I think all of you have been hammering with the regulator to get their point across, to put their view. But their effective translation of that is something which is unfounded. Like, I think Pulak raised a very valid point some time back when he said how the DGCA turned vindictive. Now, which regulator in the world ever turns vindictive? It's an industry. What are you going to do, shut them down tomorrow morning? So there has to be, in my view, and I want to cue Jayant as well on this, is that there's got to be some balance, a trade-off. Today we're talking about consolidation. Delta Airlines has Delta private jets. Qatar has Qatar executive jets. Emirates Airline has Emirates private aviation. Can we look at a scenario where someone like a Jet Airways or Vistara ties up with maybe Vineet or somebody to say, okay, we have a business jet service? Impossible. Why? Because our regulations are so myopic. We're not coming down the value stream.
So Mark, but what needs to be done? If there is you were not there in one of the RCS meetings, the secretary announced that we are not going to reinvent the wheel. Whatever is there in the FAA, whatever is there in the EASA, we are going to just follow it. Yeah. Right? That is a very big statement to make. In the last 5 years, we had noticed Indian standard conditions, so we have different regulations for India. Yeah. But here he is making a statement that whenever you are drafting the new cars, or whenever you are sitting down and reviewing them, just follow the EASA and the FAA. So these are the kind of directions he's given publicly. But why is it not happening on ground? Well, what is the reason?
Well, if you look at just the RCS, the policy per se, you are trying to create a whole new category of business operation. You're not, there is, I think Vineet made this point, there's no step up or step down. You're forcing scheduled airlines to come down, but you're not encouraging grassroots air transport companies to come up. So here, this void which is there in the middle, with the hope of getting in foreign operators, you want to, oh yes, we got Qatar Airways and we got Kuwait and Etihad coming in to operate that. I think we need to be clear that these operators, you're not bringing in FDI. There is no FDI coming. When you operate ACMI, I know this because I have been an ACMI operator in the past, you're a mercenary, you're not a missionary. You go there to make your money and get out. So you're not going to contribute back to the Indian economy in any way. You're very valid what you said, Sanjay. I do believe that one has to create, if you can't find a precedent, you can find a precedent. Look at an environment which is more or less in the same scenario as us. Okay? The other thing is, we're now reaching critical mass. We have an ICAO audit which is due this year. Mumbai airport is being declared unsafe. There are no parkings. Your runway vacation time is very high. If you try and lower the vacation time, you've got to compromise on safety. We all know the writings on the wall. Every operator here will give you an answer. Where do we go? Do we go to the ministry? Do we go to DGC? Do we go to ICAO? Do we go to BOA? So I think to answer your question in a nutshell, the pressure and focus, if we're not getting direction from the ministry, we need to take it up somewhere else. Why aren't we going to the Parliamentary Committee on Aviation? Why aren't we going to, hitting questions in the 0 hour in the Parliament? Why aren't we getting into Ministry of Finance? Why aren't we getting into the FRBM committee?
Yeah, good. So, my next question, okay, Group Captain Chopra.
To add to our regulatory problems, what I have found is that there is a total lack of financial sensitive in the regulator. That means they don't realize what impact a noting on file will have on the finances of any operator. Okay, you come out with the CAP 3100, your aircraft is standing on ground for 3.5 months. The DGCA is not really sensitive to the financial pain the operator goes through. And this sensitivity has not come over the years, and it won't come. A small decision, a file noting, or a wrong decision, or wrong CAR, which will take them about 3-4 months to correct, costs millions of dollars to the operator. I wish this sensitive, could come to the regulator. It'll solve a whole lot of business aviation operators' problems.
Okay, Jayant, the next question that I wish to put across is to you. You see, even Mark mentioned that the vindictiveness that we fear, or Pulkit mentioned that do not talk against the DGCA and all those things. So, do you think BOA, which does not own any aircraft, they're not operators, you think BOA can actually up the ante? You had this. We've been trying to get this custom duty waiver done, at least for the NSOP. But it didn't come through this time. So, as Mark mentioned, maybe going to parliamentary committee, the 0 hour. What else? What do you think the BOA should do? Should they change their stance? Should they change their policy? Should they become more aggressive? What are the fallouts of being aggressive vis-a-vis reserve, or the way we are? Or do you think this got to be a fair mix of aggression as well as sitting with the regulator and over a cup of tea and talking about your problems? Because what happens is that same thing which you see, there are 3 or 4 regulations that they change, but then they put 10 more. So the sum total is the same, or maybe even more. So many cars have come up in the last 2 years, despite the change that we're talking about. So what do you think BOA do they need to become more aggressive? Do they need to change their media policy? Do they need to go on television? Go on different media channels? What is it that you feel that we need to do?
I'll answer that question. It's a very good question, and a lot of people would ask what to do. Let me just start by a small simile that those of us who've boxed in the military or who've played squash, when the squash ball breaks, it's never the guy who hit the shot and broke the squash ball. It's probably the many players who played many games and sets before him who weakened the squash ball. A stupid analogy, but I'm trying to put it onto the Ministry of Civil Aviation, that we didn't get the custom duty waiver this time, but there are so many people in the Ministry of Civil Aviation who are sensitized to, who realize the logic and the plain simplicity of it, that remove these damn custom duties, or allow that custom duty thing to come in. That it's a matter of time. That's the first thing. I'm pretty sure that if all our efforts have not gone in vain. The opponent boxer has got weakened. He will fall down into good time. Our strategy should not be, in my opinion, and I'll be very clear on that, should not be dharna karna hai kal. A lot of people have come to me in the last 2 years that I've been president. Let's do a dharna outside the Ministry of Civil Aviation. Let's stop flying for next 10 days. Easier said than done. That requires a lot more conviction yes, maybe we can explore these things, at least to studies like what Kapil has suggested, of what is the economic loss if you don't fly for some time. We can do some studies on that, definitely. But taking that level of a strategic change is not what I would advocate. I would advocate continue what you're doing, maintain course, but expand. And it's a big learning that just Ministry of Civil Aviation is not enough. You need to target Ministry of Finance, PMO, Ministry of Home, MOD. You need to expand, you need to engage with many more people. For doing that, you need bandwidth. So if we have not done it so far, I think all of us are excused to some extent because we just didn't have the bandwidth. We are all voluntary contributors out here. All of us have our own companies to run. So, but it's definitely a realization. And so that this needs to be done. We need to start attacking the other ministries also and addressing them and making them converted. For that, we need more bandwidth, and there's going to be more discussions in our governing board on how to further strengthen BAOA as an organization. We're 6 years old. NBAA is 70 years old. EBAA is 40 years old. When you go out there and you meet those associations, they have CEOs, they have so many people handling specific departments. What do we have? 3 people? Now 3 people. Otherwise 2 people before that? I mean, to expect that we'll just get lots of results is not fair, right? So we will get there. We have a strategy and we will get there. I'm sure we will get there. Thanks.
Yeah, okay. So I would like to throw open these 2 points. One on the reason why the positive environment that we see on top is not percolating down below to the lowest level. And the second one is on this change of strategy, if anybody could recommend for the BOA than what it's doing now. Anyone? Jayant, can we have your views? Jayant Bernwal or Group Captain Sajdev?
You need to talk to real operators.
Yeah, but you've been publishing their articles, so you would know.
I can only say one thing. Can I refer to the journey of, for example,
Envision?
Vineet Pathak. He started with one aircraft, Embraer Phenom, a few years back. And he said that he would acquire about 20 more. Good number of years back. Whole lot of positivity. Point is, where he stands today. Does he have more than one aircraft? Does he have the same aircraft? And if not, what are the real reasons? On other hand, he very rightly expanded to yet another vertical. He expanded his activities, ACAS, which is into almost everything. Selling and buying, aircraft management, and crew training and so on. Is he looking at ACAS activity, the vertical, which will support his charter vertical? All this, when I say, gives some reason to look at where exactly and what kind of health the business aviation fraternity has today in India. That's my point. And beyond that, of course, there are so many things. Through my eyes, I feel a passenger, a business aircraft, big or small, is supposed to buy the minimum cost, something like $5,000 to $15,000 for an hour. Who is this buyer? Who is this ultimate user? Do we have enough these users? Do we have enough such capable, financially sound people who can also help sustaining and growing business aviation? Another point, if I can say, for sure, this is very clear in our country as of now, those who actually own the aircraft and who can own the aircraft would never come up and never argue with the government bodies that I'm not getting the due for my business aircraft activities, because they have their own much bigger agenda. They will not come over. I think it will take another 10, 15 years So, and then perhaps we may be able to see that, okay, maybe Ratan Tata or maybe Aditya Birla will come up and tell the government that, look, I'm facing a lot of problems, allow my industry to grow, which is business aviation per se. And this will contribute to the economy of the country. It is not happening. We need to look at all these real pictures, if I can.
Rohit sir, I have heard you talking a lot about, getting these players involved. You are aware about Mr. Jindal, how he used to make regular visits to the DGCA to, make them agree. Is this something which the BOA needs to do, to, have these industry captains getting involved and going and talking more often to the DGCA, to the Ministry of Civil Aviation, even to the Ministry of Finance, where we haven't been able to reach? I think they would be able to reach, easier for them to reach.
Yeah. Sanjay, you know my views on this one. And just not to take away anything from what Jayant has said, obviously BOA, when it started to where it has reached today, has achieved a lot, all right? But I personally think that going forward, BOA does need to redefine as to how it's going to do its work. This is not an open forum discussion. I think this is an internal discussion which we will have. But just to give a few points here. Today what is happening is, as an association, our engagement with the policy makers is at a very superficial level, if I may use the word. We are not really being able to penetrate deep, okay? And there are issues here, the way our own body is set up and the way we are funded. I have a problem in the way we are funded. I mean, we are a 6-year-old association. We are not healthy the way we should have been. It's surprising to me that we represent almost 60%, 65% of the fleet in India, and every top name that we can figure off is a member with us. But when you look behind you on the board, do I find any operator's name up there to even sponsor this event? It's not there. So somewhere there is a gap.
There is a gap.
We need to figure this out. Many of our operators are not here to even attend the conference. So there is definitely a gap here. Coming back to the question of involving the owners, I think definitely there's a case there. And I think there is a new generation of owners who are now coming in, who are younger, who are smarter, and who are willing to be engaged, who are willing to engage on our behalf. So I think as an association, we do need to bring them in and use them to lobby our efforts. So 2 things I think we need to do. We need to become financially healthier, to make sure that whatever resources we can hire to penetrate deep inside the government, we need to do that. And secondly, we need to start getting the owners in. And I think we need to formalize that way as to which, even if we get 4 or 5 of them in maybe a higher panel, advisory panel, who we can engage with on a regular basis and who we can use, I think that will definitely help.
Anybody? Yeah.
Can I just, very different thought process. I would like to speak about a silver lining here. Now, the silver lining is, if there are almost like 1,000 outs for business aviation to exist today in India, and still business aviation continues. We should just imagine when we see the changes in the attitude of the government, and perhaps also in the minds of the owner, where actually the business aviation can explosively go in our country.
Yeah. Anybody else who would like to add from the rear? Anyone? Yeah. Anurag.
I would suggest you should keep involved more service providers who are contributing to business aviation, who would become an integral part of the business aviation. And the service providers will not only bring in some contribution or value addition as far as funding is required, but also you can also leverage their standing in.
So are you referring to having more service providers as associate members, or are you referring to the present service providers who are associate members to be involved in a different manner? What is your suggestion?
Maybe a little better standing in BOA, basically.
Okay. Right. So okay, Group Captain Sachdeva.
at some other seminars, I've heard some success stories of how people use the dual track of writing directly to the PMO's office.
Great. Yeah, we would like to hear such things, yeah.
So what I wanted to suggest to BOA was that we could send, some kind of a missive directly to the PMO, telling him that this is how we feel that certain changes can be brought to the way the government looks at business aviation. And that is not to just talk about how business aviation contributes to the nation's economy and things like that. For that, there are many things which you can refer to. There's an Oxford University document on that. They ordered a research on that about 7-8 years ago. So all those documents are available. But I'm talking about specifically to the Indian context of how we can do that. I'm sure there are great people in BOA who can draft that letter. But if my services are required, I volunteer them.
Great. Sometimes I do get these, and that's the next part of the seminar that I want to ask is there something which we can do differently? Maybe change our wish list, or maybe change the way we approach this, like you've suggested, right to the PMO office. No, I have rarely seen any debate happening on the national media on the industry-specific issues. There is no channel, which does it. Perhaps if there is some channel where they can take on, 1 month, let's say aviation, or 1 week aviation-related issues, and second week maybe some railways-related issues or some other industry-related issues. But this thing never comes up on discussion at the, this thing. There are some CNBC channels, they do conduct such industry-specific, things. But to generate an opinion or to generate a perception change, which everybody is suggesting out here to do, we need to change the perception amongst the public as such. Initially to the public and then the ministry. So do you think there is a case for approaching it in a different manner by, involving or going on the national media stream, or someone can just throw some light on this, maybe, or suggest some other out-of-the-box, suggestion can be given? Anyone? Yeah, Rohit sir.
My only question is, will the change in public perception really help? Does the public believe that business aviation is required in the country through the eyes of public?
So because I don't think there is a perception change required in the regulator or the ministry. They are quite clear. The perception change is required in the other ministries. So within the government, there is a perception change required, and there is a perception change required in the public also. Because the same public is going to become, come and, govern you later. So unless we don't change the perception of the public as such, so there is no problem, I feel, at the ministry level. They all understand the, effects of business aviation and all.
But they are still maintaining the mindset that business aviation is the toy for richest people.
Who are these?
The government people, including the ministers.
Including the Minister of Civil Aviation?
I am saying ministers. Okay. And I think even finance minister, for that matter, would certainly think on these lines.
Good. Yeah. Finance minister, yes. So that's what I'm saying. There is a perception.
Even the civil aviation minister, largely, overall, his mind would be, this is definitely for the rich people.
Okay, another out of the box. First, we'll hear you, Pulkit.
We have recently given a letter to the PM on our points, and I would suggest you do that. The other way that you can draw attention to the other ministries, you'll have to find an MP or MP who will raise questions in question hour, start questions, and that can be done. So that is one way you can reach other ministries.
Good. There was this NBA, it has a website, and they have made another website on no plane, no gain, Just a thought. They are just trying to sell the thought just to change the perception amongst the public. They have a separate website to change the perception. This is the kind of efforts that they are taking at that level. So I want somebody from US. Kurt, are you there? Yeah. Can you just throw some light? on how the perception is being changed in US. Is the perception change required in the ministry level, or is it required at the national level in the public?
So NBAA works at both national and local levels. Nationally, in Washington, I'd say the industry has a fairly favorable reputation among policymakers, mainly because broadly, the industry contributes to the economy of the United States. So, and let's not forget that an important part of that is that several of the manufacturers are in the United States itself. So they provide lots of jobs, it's highly technological, highly skilled labor, and then NBAA works with the General Aviation Manufacturers Association and several other smaller associations, and they've created something called the Alliance for Aviation Across America. And there, this group has a few specific hired staffers that go out and they go to the states and they go to the cities and they show the politicians in the states and in localities what the job and the employment benefits and the economic benefits of general aviation and business aviation are at that level. And they end up getting governors and mayors and airport authorities to sign these wonderful declarations that are statements of support for business and general aviation across the U.S. You go to their website and you can see, you click on a state and you can see what the economic contribution of the industry is to that state. I mean, there are all kinds of things that, I'm not saying this is the answer for India. India will do and create kind of opportunities for business aviation in its own way. But this is one of the ways in the U.S. that they've done it, where people and policymakers can go and they can say, hey, this is a great industry because look at the economic benefits it provides us. So that has helped to reduce the perception. And certainly it provides the basis for politicians and government leaders to take more favorable action in terms of creating an appropriate regulatory regime for the industry there.
Thank you, Kurt. Okay, so moving on, I have one more out-of-the-box question to ask, and I would address this to Jayant and Harsh. See, we have been fighting this case of NSOP, custom duty issue, right, since so many years. What if we just try and view this from their, their perspective? For them, business aviation, they always relate to business aviation as private flying, or somebody chartering an aircraft to go from Delhi to Bombay. But we have so many business aviation flights which are religious tourism or maybe medical charters, which do not, they deserve even a, more subsidy than the normal scheduled airlines also. I mean, the scheduled airlines don't have these subsidies, but they need to be actually looked after more. So rather than asking for the custom duty waiver, is there a case where we go to the government and say, look, for this kind of charter, maybe 2 places connected by scheduled airlines, maybe 7 or 8 flights a day or something, you have a higher service tax, slab. And coming down to, let's say, people who are doing medical charters, you don't have any service tax. And then just get rid of your customs duty and you will, you're on the tax, on the money collection thing, you will not suffer. Do you think something like this we can suggest, rather than going every year? Because see, this year they had the best conditions existed for us to get this waiver. He had even, there was a demonetization drive going on. We expected that he would have collected some money. There was a 3rd year of the government going. And we expected some kind of a, relief happening this year. Do you think such kind of a move would help? Or maybe something different you can think about and suggest? Harsh? Jayant, first you.
Yeah, why not? We can certainly try this. But I think we're going to try several things together in parallel, not one thing. And one is what you're saying, directly approaching the ministry and giving them the solution as an option. The other option is also what we have already told them, is what works in Europe. For instance, it's too much of an ask to think, yes, custom duty will go for the private category. It may not also. Look at Europe, Germany, Norway. They also have 21, 22%, 25% duties for private category, and they have 0% for NSOP or commercial category. But wahan pe, it's not an impediment. If someone wants to import an aircraft in purely private use, he pays the 25% duty. But if he wants to import it and at the time of importation, he submits a valid lease with any commercial AOC holder, he is allowed to import it for 0% duty for a period of 2 years or a fixed period. In that period, if he takes it out into private category, he pays full duty. But if he continues commercial and after 2 years he sells it out to private category or moves it over, it's okay. This is the practical way Europe has approached this. Many countries in Europe have approached it, and they've looked at how it's worked out there. So we've already suggested this to the ministry, and I can tell you they've been very, very positive. They've written to the Customs Department also, DRI department, about this. We've been told it's in the work, so it's happening. So maybe custom duty will not go, but we will get what we want.
Yeah, but another suggestion, rather than approaching them to waive off the custom duty, we could go for only below 5,700 kgs or helicopters. Because helicopters, it doesn't make sense, because he is doing nation building tasks. He's doing, power line transmission. He's doing agri spraying, or maybe, heli cranes, such kind of things. Heli religious tourism. So these are the places where he needs to be given support. And making him pay custom duties or making him pay landing charges is something, which he is actually taking the brunt, because he is in business aviation. He doesn't have a different category. Harsh?
See, what Mr. Jayant Barnawal just said, it's not that ministry has not taken up our case with the Ministry of Finance. They have proposed to zero duty for all NSOP operators. They have. I mean, it's not that we have been able to convince them. I'm sure all of us agree. It's just that the Ministry of Finance is not agreeing. And the answer is because the perception is difficult to change, but we have to keep working. Is that because your composition of our NSOP operator, as I said, when we were talking, 70% are corporate-backed operators, and only 30% are mainstream operators, like me. So, I mean, we have to keep fighting, and we have to, this is the way it is structured, and we have it here, and we have to keep pushing our case. That's the only. But to answer the question, I don't think if we are asking for a selective concession for certain this thing, I don't think,
because this is going to happen. Every year we'll be asking for, complete business aviation to be given concessions. We have graduated well. Earlier on, we were asking for the complete business aviation. This time we had actually, stressed on only NSOP. Maybe we could start off, type of aircrafts. Sir, these are small aircrafts. When the Ministry of Civil Aviation goes to Ministry of Finance and says, sir, these are small aircrafts, they are used for medical evacuation. They are not being used by industrialists to go from one place to another. These are the aircraft which are being used for, transportation of pilgrims to Katra and, these places. So they need to be waived off the custom duties.
See, here, it's like DGCA is not the party to be, presenting our case. It's a ministry. They have done it. Now it comes to customs and finance. So it's, as I said, we have to, as what you said, perception has to be changed. It will change by time. It changes with time.
Yeah, Bali.
So, Ministry of Home.
Yeah, Pradeep and then Bali.
See, Ministry of Home and Ministry of Defense, please don't include them. They are out of purview of our civil aviation, absolutely. They cannot penetrate it. The dialogue has to be there, but I have been dealing with Ministry of Defense Finance for the last 20 years. I mean, the regulations are still outdated. I mean, still, same. And if you hear from them, I think to a certain extent they're right. It's very difficult to debate, because when it comes to security issue, you can't debate with them. So, I think, what we are fighting for, concession of the 0% duty, that's one of our agenda. We have to keep doing it,
Yeah, Pradeep.
Okay, I have 2-3 points here. What you said, one is about service tax. With GST coming in, that would be redundant. And the second is about classification of aircraft for custom duties. Now, that's again you are creating a class within a class. What will happen is tomorrow, Mr. X or an operator X gets an aircraft that I'm going to use it for pilgrimage. And he does use for something else. Now, again, what's happening between pseudo NSOPs and NSOPs, same thing will come up here. You are opening a Pandora's box, or you are starting another class within class and complicating the issue. It has to be only one way to do is stick to 2.5 or 0% of whatever it is, but don't create class within class.
Okay.
I would also tend to
Bali, sir.
Well, Sanjay, I want to bring another perception here. This custom duty on NSOP was introduced in September, October 2007. not as a part of the budget proposal by the government. It happened after the budget proposal. So it indicates to us that we should rather not try to do it during budget time, as we all have been talking about perception being we are representing corporates. And the opposition party repeatedly saying this government is for corporates. So it's not a political right decision for the government to take during budget times. And I just want to tell you why I'm saying this, because post-budget we had a meeting in the FICCI and we discussed this issue. We realized that in fact, Pulak was also there, we realized that we need to engage the Ministry of Finance. And we are right now working, and we also discussed that we should also have with this tie-up with the other bodies like CII, of which Rohit is part, and I am representing BOA and FICCI. We are developing a strategy where we can handle the finance ministry through these bodies, and which is the best way to do it, let me tell you, that because we come out with knowledge paper with the support of everyone who is now offering to help us produce knowledge paper and convince, and the best bet is to do it in between for reasons of growth of aviation, for reasons of connectivity. That is the best way to do it, and I think we should be at it, and like rightly Jayant said, we have made all effort. In fact, he and me were camping in the ministry until the last moment we're getting that letter sent from there. And we followed it up. It has gone to Revenue Secretary like it has been mentioned. So we need to change our strategy. There's a valid point. And we also need to engage other bodies like CII, FICCI, SOCM, and all together. In fact, ministry also says you come, more forceful way by engaging others also. So we need to do that. Perhaps we can reach there with the combined effort of everybody.
So due to paucity of time, I'll just quickly move. Anybody else wants to make a quick comment? Anyone? Yeah, Raman.
Yeah, this is probably my first input to the BOA team. Colonel Julka, there are multiple opportunities available with the existing government. There are new doors that have been opened up. If government has not been receptive of the ideas that we've put them through with maybe written or verbal or whoever, the idea can be that we could link it to the bigger game, like the new initiatives that have been taken in terms of Invest India, in terms of Make in India. There are foreign companies which are willing to invest into India. There are teams that are working out of the PMO to get more FDI funding into India. And we could link this piece of business where we say that we can provide or facilitate mobility of these investors across India through a faster mode in case certain set of rooms or certain set of norms are kind of eased for us. That would help us get India on the global map much more faster.
Okay. So I'm coming to the last portion of this seminar. Now, we have always spoken about those four pillars, like, the taxes, the infrastructure, training, regulations, etc. To bring a change in these pillars, there is also a requirement of a DNA kind of a change. I know DNA cannot change, but there has to be a change in the culture. How do we ensure a change in a culture? And I've listed out 3 or 4 cultural aspects of the environment. In the next slide, you'll just see. There may be many more, but you'll find that each and every culture that we talk of, which are not there in this, willy-nilly will come and fit in those 4 cultures that I talk of. Nationalism, ownership, faith, perception. Nationalism means any decision or any action that you do, we do with this in our mind, that this is what is good for the nation. Aircraft sitting on the ground is not good for the nation. Nobody can deny it. But it fails, or it is so difficult, or it pains you when you sit there, when you go to the DGC and says, Kal aana, ya parso aana, or this file has been put up to so-and-so JDG, he will come after 7 days when he's coming from US. So, he has no empathy towards the aircraft which sits on ground. This is a national asset. He has no answerability, no accountability of the aircraft sitting on ground. And I have seen this just change in the last 3-4 years, especially when this, the new set of this CAP 3100 and all these things came up. There was nobody made to answer why an aircraft sat on the ground for 6 months or 8 months. It is so sad. So these are the types of, cultural changes that I look into. We'll cover this, but first I'd like to go to Group Captain Chopra. Sir, what do you think? What needs, could you just explain this? Or you like to add something on this?
What I see missing here is the safety culture.
Safety comes in nationalism. from our side, you know, we are keep saying that, you know, these people should change the rules and all. If we are also nationalist and we, rather than keep on asking for things which are against the safety, see, or the perception side, where we have to go to the other side and see, fine, you know. So therefore, perception would cover it basically.
Yeah, okay. Now, when you talk about culture, I have transited from airlines to business aviation, and it's been a learning for me. Okay. When you talk about culture, airlines have a different culture, business aviation has a different culture. But I find the biggest gap in business aviation, okay, is the lack of understanding of safety. In the sense that we think that we are under the radar, the DGCA more or less leaves us to our own sort of operations. It is logistically, you know, impossible for them to come and audit us every day. Okay. The thing is that DGCA is basically, or the regulator basically is airline centric as far as safety goes. All right. And the education and awareness about safety in business aviation is actually a very big gap. Please understand that an aeroplane which flies, it will cost you $35–40 million maybe. It doesn't know that it's flying under a bad policy, okay? Or it is flying under remote connectivity. Or, you know, an aeroplane is an object, right? If you lose it, well, the effect on business aviation or an operator, small operator is much higher. In one accident, you lose 50% of your assets. What I'm trying to say is, all the other issues apart, okay, whether you have 1 aircraft or 10 aircraft, we should not lose sight of safety, whatever is the environment you're working in. You may be unhappy with the regulator, you may be unhappy with the ministry, you may be unhappy with anybody. The statistics of business aviation accidents are quite actually sobering. The last serious airline accident we had was that unfortunate Mangalore 737 crash. But after 2010, there have been 8 fatal accidents in business aviation. 8 fatal accidents, right? That's not a very good statistic to live with. And most of them have been avoidable. What I'm trying to say is that in spite of a bad policy, in spite of whatever pressures you, because business aviation, I find, is under much more pressure day to day than an airline. An airline works in a protected environment. They fly from metro to metro. Everything is there on the table for a pilot or for an engineer. Business aviation is totally different. There are so many uncertainties. The type of flying is different. You fly to airfields where nobody goes and where there is no infrastructure available. So my only point here is that we may be operating in a very difficult business environment, right? But flying is flying, whether you're flying a Cessna or a Airbus 320, right? So this has to sort of percolate down to the smallest guy, in business aviation, which I think we have taken an initiative after this safety workshop. We intend to drive it home to each and every operator in the business aviation space. That don't lose sight of safety. You must be aware of what the stakes are. And stakes are much higher in business aviation than airlines, because an airlines can absorb an accident. A business aviator, small operator, it shuts down the next day, right? So that's all I had to say about the environment. Thank you.
So perception, we've all spoken about the perception.
One sec. I just have one point to add to this. There's been a realization amongst us in BOA that this word perception, which needs to change. How do you do it? So the safety workshop concepts which you're going to hold across various cities now slowly in different regions and have DGCA interacting with us is in some way going to change perception also. It is. They are going to certainly talk to you. I mean, in my 5 years of running an NSOP, I don't know how many times I must have spoken to Lalit Gupta or Mr. Lalit Gupta or the CFI. Not many times. It's mostly other people in our company talking. But in the run-up, last 2 months or run-up to the safety workshop, there's been so much of engagement. They've talked to us, I've talked to them, we've all interacted. I think it's going to have an effect on perception. Let's see how it goes in the next couple of...
But Jayant, you're going to need a two-pronged approach. You have to carpet bomb and you got to go JDAM. Now, if you want a carpet bomb, I think you got Shelka and Ujjwal and Group Captain Bali And you guys are pretty strong with moving the industry towards an awareness perception. Your JDAMs, you have a brilliant storyline. I mean, if you look at SIAM, you look at the kind of organized FIA before. For tax issues, they went to FRBM. They never went to DGCA or the ministry. They went to Ministry of Finance. They took it up with members of parliament, lobbyists. So the whole idea is that you can't just expect, all right, we're going to be doing 10 workshops this year and we got perception, industry's happy, we're all fine and dandy. You're not. So it has to be a dual approach here.
You're right. We're not going to go for tax issues to DGCA. It'll always be to the Ministry of Civil Aviation, now to the Ministry of Finance. And for perception, I just said it'll have somewhat of a positive impact on perception. It won't change it completely.
I'll give you a simple example. SIAM, Society for Indian Automobile Manufacturers. They were struggling with tax issues in the mid-90s. FRBM wasn't set up. You had the Planning Commission, and then came Niti Aayog. They hit hard with Planning Commission and now Niti Aayog. That's who they talk to. The Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Planning Committee is the most potent when it comes to defining indirect and direct taxes. Now, they define what, if you can prove to FRBM that if you lower it by 1.5%, that's how much of tax collection you will see, that's your audience. So, my point here is that you guys got Ministry of Civil Aviation covered. I think what Group Captain Bali and everyone has done here is just remarkable. You have a foot in the door with everybody there.
Well, not completely. For instance, there are sections within the Ministry of Civil Aviation, including at the very highest level, where they feel BOA. Yeah.
Not just BOA.
Business aviation.
Let's bring in Pavanance.
Why aren't you?
No, let's bring in Pavanance as well. Pavanance has got the cold shoulder. Pavanance cannot bid for RCS. They're denied from RCS. So it's not just you guys. Even the government operators are pretty peeved off. Go to government of UP, government of Rajasthan, go to government of Maharashtra. They'll tell you 100, they'll probably beat you guys in your issues. So it's industry-wide. It's not just in isolation. You're not alone. And my only point here is JDAM, go precision.
We'll do that. Yeah, but I think, Sanjay sir, we should wrap up now.
Yeah, just give me 2 minutes more. Okay, so we spoke of perception. Faith amongst the regulator themselves, amongst the stakeholders. There's no point. There are about six or seven, desks which are clearing a file. This is a lack of faith amongst in the ability of the other person to actually comment. So this is the type. If this cultural change comes in DGCA, when one desk actually has faith on the other, or they have faith in the stakeholders, that fine. If a stakeholder is like what Group Captain Chopra is just defining, if the government has this faith that they are safety conscious, things will be much better. On the ownership, we also talked about nationalism. Ownership is, there is a statement which the minister makes. Somebody has to take the ownership. He makes that EASA and FAA will just blindly follow it. And somebody down below has to take the ownership of making that happen. And to me, to bring about these cultural changes, the only thing which works is change. And the change can only start from top. So I am totally of the opinion that if this change has to come in, now with this vibrant economy and vibrant government and all, the change, if it has to come in, the people whom we know, and it's good thing is they are there who can make a change, they need to stay. They need to stay at the top. They need to stay for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Because if you go and study change management, you will see it falls within the purview of the leader. Only a leader can ensure a change happens. Down below, people cannot do change. Change has to come from top. And it is so infectious. This positivity is so infectious. Rohit sir, you were there when that RCS meeting was going on in FICCI. And I asked the question that what is going to happen of these scheduled commuter airlines. And the JDG, who would normally in his office say that no, it is not possible, he said it is possible. It is you who had to remind him maybe there are some custom issues. Remember, sir? So this is what the infection does, And the same thing we actually noticed, you all were not there. I was there for that helicopter committee, car on committee. And the DG was also speaking the same language of the secretary. So for us, to bring about a change in this, in the culture. Because once these cultural changes come in, all those 4 pillars, whatever we spoke of, will fall into place. If you start thinking in that manner. And we need to have these people on top always being there. So just to sum up, few points that we are taking on. And I have not spoken of one thing called technology. It can also bring in a lot of change. Once the eGCA comes in, I was thinking that I would ask this question to Mr. Group Captain Bali. He's been a strong proponent of this eGCA thing. Once the technology comes in, there was a significant change that we saw happening in passport office. Similar thing we will have once the whole thing goes online. So leadership, steady. We could have change managers also. Some people down below could be change managers reporting only for change, implementation of change to the leader. This is the kind of change that is required. Otherwise, we would just be talking. Every year we'll come and talk. People will change, and the whole story will keep getting repeated. With this, I come to the end of the session. Yeah, Rohit sir. To?
So Tata Consultancy Services. That is how the passport system got sorted out.
Yeah, some out-of-the-box solutions will come in. And the leadership. It is there in the report, yes. Yes. Industry experts, the availability of pool defense experts, who are there, who were not, ex-defense people, so their contribution, etc. Everything has been, listed out there. But this will come only if there is faith with them, faith also comes. Okay, fine, we have a reserve pool of talent, which can actually contribute. With this, we come to the end of this session, and it's been a long afternoon. And I would now request Jayant to come and give the closing remarks. Come.
Thank you very much, all of you, for coming here. It's been a long day, still longer. We'll meet you all in the awards evening. Just to quickly wrap up, perception issues, it's being addressed. We've got a lot to do. Customs duties, cartelization, grey market areas. BOA has got to remain very tightly focused on what it's doing, maintain course, and add to its organization with some kind of funding strategy, for which some of the consultants here have spoken to us.